I called Councilman Creed this evening and just sort of talked through some of my thoughts on this topic. And I just want to express the same thoughts for council and the public, regardless of how you vote, waiving the 3-read rule tonight or having special meetings. Some things I think you should consider when you're considering that vote. First, I'll start by saying I applaud council and the townships, everybody who's taken action to reduce the burden on taxpayers, particularly homeowners during this time. We all know inflation's through the roof. We know that these property tax mandates are upon us, and I don't know that any of us understand why. So I want to thank council for taking the initiative to consider this reduction. We are probably at, I don't know how I would calculate this, but I would imagine we are facing the biggest single reduction in workforce and therefore revenue decrease in the city's history. 850 plus employees over time, $1.5 million from a single employer. There is a ton of uncertainty still going into next year. And that is probably my biggest concern when we look at voluntarily reducing revenue by an unknown extent. We have projections, and I think they are pretty accurate projections, but I think there are some things that they don't take into account, which I just want us to consider. The first of which is that anybody who gets a property tax increase can appeal that increase to the Board of Revisions. And the largest increases we've seen, I believe, are to commercial and industrial property owners. I think the averages there are something around 130%. Those property owners can and will appeal those increases. And so the projections that we're talking about today, not necessarily absolutely, but they can be appealed. And so the projections that we're talking about will not go up, but they could go down. That's a concern that I have. So going into this budget cycle, not knowing, I don't think any of us know how many people are going to be employed at the glove manufacturer, what type of revenue that would look like. It just gives me pause for concern when we're talking about reducing potential revenue. I think, and as I understand it, the goal was to set out to help residential owner-occupied property owners, mom and pop, right? And I think that it was explored, and it was not possible to only reduce the millage for individual property owners in their homes. You had to reduce the millage for everybody, which presented a problem. How do you apply it equally to everybody? And I think that the solution that came about was appropriate. That being said, it's my understanding that not everybody in the city of Chillicothe Corporation limits has the same millage. My understanding is that if you live in Uniota School District within the city corporation limits, your millage that you pay to the city of Chillicothe, which goes to the general fund, is actually 1.6%. Based on the ordinance that's in front of you, I don't think that the people who are in Uniota School District who live in the corporation limits will receive any benefit from this legislation as it's drafted, because it takes it from 2.6 to 2.21, as opposed to recognizing that there are other millages in the city. So in terms of equal application, we've kind of missed something there. And that's my layperson's assessment. But then the final thing I'll say is that if we're going to set out to help mom and pop, or the property owner who has a home that was worth $150,000, and then let's say it does go up to $200,000, that tax burden, if we play out the math, they're going to be taxed on 1/3 of the value of the 200, and that's going to be at 2.21 mils. I think you're talking about between an increase of $50 to $100 in that range. But that's the type of money we're talking about. The business owners, if their property goes from $1 million to $2.5 million, we're talking about more, but we're talking about $2,000 to $4,000 or something like that, which of course, because it's business, can either be deferred to a future year or written off, those sorts of things. So assessing the impact on a business is much harder for me to assess, but it is more easy for me to understand the impact because I have my own home, and I did the math on that. In my situation, I looked up my house. my property value went up about 10%. Next year, I would pay less property tax in 2026 than I paid in 2025 by about $18. It's a wide range of outcomes, right? Some people did build a house, for example. Their property value went from $20,000 to maybe $250,000. So their property taxes went up, but they should have because they built a house. But they get the same millage. What I'm going to arrive at is I think that there are other solutions that we could consider after all the facts are known. And one of those would be to simply offer a rebate or a refund to owner-occupied homes, right? You own a home, we give you a refund of X amount, right? We could do that in the spring when the dust is settled, we know what's owed, what we've got coming in, and we just go to the general fund and say, you own a property, we're going to give you a refund check of $100 or whatever that might be. And there's a challenge no matter how we look at this, applying it equally, but I do think that the outset of the goal, at least as it was stated to me, was really to help individuals and families with their expenses this year and next, because things are tight. And I think that what we're doing with this across the board application is displacing that across everybody, including business and industry and commercial. So at the end of the day, this isn't something that I'm going to veto. I think it's important to save a few bucks for everybody. But I do want to propose that there are potentially some other options out there, and those concerns that I mentioned around different millage rates and explaining to folks if they don't get this discount, why. So that's in the atmosphere now. I'm happy, if it goes to discussion to offer more thoughts, but I just wanted to offer some alternate scenarios that I thought could be helpful.